Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode.
Hey everyone, last week we talked about enhancing your relationship love map. And part of being able to move forward and grow in your relationship is finding where you currently are on your relationship love map and then learning how to get better from there. So we gave you some exercises on how to enhance your love map from the book that we're going through right now called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. But we just touched that tip of the iceberg last week. So, of course, the book goes into greater detail of those exercises. So make sure you go get your copy if you haven't already from our website at marriagepuzzle.com/books. And then today in this episode, we're talking about the second principle for making marriage work, which is nurture your fondness and admiration.
Yeah, it's going to be a good episode to dive into. And fondness is affection or liking of someone, and admiration is your level of respect and approval for another person, both of which in this case are referring to your spouse, of course, because this is a marriage podcast and that's what you're going to get here. So John Gottman explains that all couples go through times of annoyance with each other. I would even add to that probably on a daily or weekly basis in most cases of couples. But the difference between happily married couples and not so happily married couples is often their level of fondness and admiration for one another. The happily married couple has built a foundation of fondness and admiration, and they still feel the person that they are married to is worthy of honor and respect, and they cherish each other. Because of this, they don't have thoughts of divorce or separation every time they get into an argument.
Yeah, I love that. Just to say that again, that they think the person they married is worthy of honor and respect, and they cherish each other. Those are key words.
That key word "worthy" is huge because if you don't have that respect for someone, you're not going to think they're worthy of it. And so, I love that you emphasize that because that word is what sticks in my mind from that phrase.
Mm-hmm. And Gottman says it perfectly with this quote. He says, people who are happily married like each other. If they didn't, they wouldn't be happily married. So, how true is that? And so the book has lots of questionnaires to determine the fondness and admiration of your relationship and see if it's a strength area or if it needs some improvement.
Yeah, and one way we like to describe this in our coaching is through an analogy we like to call deposits and withdrawals. So imagine your relationship with your spouse kind of like a bank account. You're going to have deposits and you're going to have withdrawals. And the goal is always to have more deposits than withdrawals. And so when you genuinely show your spouse that you appreciate them, you make a deposit. These can come in forms such as, saying things like, I had fun at the party. Thanks for being with me. Or thanks for taking care of me when I was sick. Or thanks for making coffee for me this morning. And
that's a big one. You're like, no, thank you for drinking coffee.
For drinking the coffee, yeah. But on the other hand, when you get into an argument or say something critical of your spouse or didn't do something that you promised to do, these are going to be the withdrawals from your relationship bank account. Like I said, the goal is going to be to have more deposits than the withdrawals. And what you don't want is you don't want to have an overdraft on your relationship, quote unquote overdraft. And so if you haven't put in enough deposits with your spouse and you have a big fight, that might be when you overdraft your relationship account, and that's when those thoughts of divorce or leaving the relationship will start to show up or creep in. You can consider those thoughts your overdraft fees. And if you're already having thoughts of divorce or leaving, your relationship account, so to speak, could be in the negative. And so you're going to have to immediately, if your bank account gets in the negative, what do you have to do? You have to immediately find a way to start making more deposits into it. So the same thing happens in your relationship. And so if you're in the negative, you have to find ways to start making more deposits into your relationship.
Yeah, and we've talked about love languages on here before, but I'm going to give you guys an exercise to do no matter what your love language is. But especially if your spouse's words of affirmation, that's an easy way for you to express fondness and admiration. But even if it's not, the exercise is just going to be to write a list that's like starts with I appreciate blank about, they're going to all be about your spouse. And
that's a key.
Yeah.
You don't want to be writing those about somebody else.
I appreciate coffee, or I appreciate this other person. Yeah. No. But just like the mindset here, because earlier you said that everyone's going to have annoyances. Everyone's going to have those triggers of, those cliches of like you left the toilet seat up or the toothpaste issues or whatever it is, but that shouldn't lead to divorce or even a fight. Once you've established the fondness and admiration, that's then that worthy of respect that you should show your spouse. So it's really a mindset. So if you start your day, even if you can only write one thing each day, but I appreciate, and then you fill in the blank. And you don't necessarily have to share that with your spouse, although that would be a huge step of expressing fondness and admiration. But because it's a mindset, I would just encourage you just to kind of write those down, and then the next day try to write 2 additional things, and then 3, and then 4, and soon you'll have this whole list of things you appreciate about your spouse, and your mindset will change about them drastically over time.
Yeah, and I love what you said, that you said you should share it with your spouse, which is definitely the goal you should get to. If you're in a spot where, like we said a minute ago, that you're having those thoughts of leaving the relationship and your relationship account, so to speak, is in the negative, then what the most important thing here is that you need those thoughts, that appreciation, what you're going to say nice to your spouse, those deposits that you're going to start making, they have to be genuine. And so if you're kind of in a negative spot and thinking negatively towards your spouse, it might be good to write them privately for a little while and get your mindset to turn back positive, because even if you're putting stuff out there, if it's not genuine, then that's going to feel, your spouse is going to feel that fakeness. It's going to feel forced. But if you write it first and practice it and change your own mindset towards them before you start sharing things with them, don't wait too long.
Right.
Because if you wait too long, then it's going to be just as bad. But if you give yourself a few days, if you make a decision today when you're listening to this, say, you know what, I want to start thinking positively of my spouse, and you start writing those things, do it for a few days and then put something out there, so that as soon as it feels like you can genuinely say something, put it out there. But you don't want it to feel fake. So I like that you said write it down first, so you can kind of practice that internally and change your mindset towards them before you do anything. So
yeah, the most important thing here is just to start doing something. So listening to this podcast together each week, and then discussing the content. So even if you're listening on your own time and your own devices, sit down and discuss the content that we bring, because that's just a place you can start, or you can pick up the book that we're talking about or the other books and resources we have on our website and read it together. Put the exercises into practice. And you can reach out to us directly to do coaching. This is what we love to do. And just, gain that accountability if you want to work with us to improve your marriage.
Yeah, and make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, so you can get notifications when each episode releases. And make sure you follow us on social media at Marriage Puzzle. But thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
See you soon.